4 years in the military serving this wonderful country that we have, but now mogul, real estate, businessman, all those good things. He actually drives a nice little Tesla and everything as well, too. I got to test drive this thing, all right? He is the host of the Talk to Me Nice podcast, and one of the reasons why he started that podcast is because he was in a relationship, which he'll tell you a little bit more about. And then he started the podcast, and he claims on the podcast that he doesn't really know what he's doing, but I think he does know what he's doing. His name is Ryan Fagan, everybody. This is my next guest on the Unshakeable Conversations podcast. Ryan, welcome to the show, my man. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
What's going on, man?
You got me nervous. I told you I'm kind of, I don't know, you're very healed and stuff. Hopefully we have a good conversation.
Oh, man, we're going to have a blessed conversation. That's what we're going to have. Listen, first and foremost, you've had me on your show a couple times, so appreciate that. And this is your first time. Do you like the set? Like the setup?
I love the setup. I'm definitely stealing your lighting setup here.
Listen, man, sure. Take whatever it is that you need. You know what I'm saying? It's all about getting better. So let's start here, man. Like, tell us a little bit about yourself, your upbringing, where you come from. Like, you are a well-dressed man, you know what I'm saying? I would like to say, and very well organized. I'm attracted to people, whatever, that are organized in life, you know, because I come from a military family myself. So, so yeah, go ahead, tell the audience a little bit about you.
Well, I appreciate that. Oh man, so I was born in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
I think this will be relevant.
Yeah. I'm joking.
I ain't stayed there that long.
All right, cool.
I'm black and white. My mom's white and my dad's black.
Okay.
And then basically one of the reasons why I grew up in Jersey is because at the time Philadelphia was quite segregated. Like my dad would come to the white neighborhood and get chased out.
Wow.
He told me crazy stories about that stuff. So my parents moved me to Jersey in first grade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was in the military. So, I grew up in South Jersey. I ended up joining the military at 18. I did 4 years, 15 months in Iraq. I did that because I don't know about college, man. Even though I went to school later.
Okay.
I always worked. At one point I had 3 jobs. So I always really worked hard.
Yeah.
Which taught me that I don't want to always work hard, which is why I got into real estate.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. So you went into the military. What was that experience like? Like, especially for an 18-year-old kid, coming out of high school.
Man, you know what's funny? I still don't know all of the effects that it had on me, good and bad, right?
Okay.
Because the military will teach you leadership and accountability for real.
Yeah.
Like, it does not compare to the private sector. I had soldiers that were under me later on, and I was only 21 years old, but I was responsible for 4 other soldiers. So if they're not there on time at PT, they're coming to you. And sometimes you might want to cover for them to protect your team and then punish them later, right? But you are accountable for them. Like, I was in Germany. So even if a soldier went out to the club in the middle of the night, and got arrested or something like that, you got to answer for them.
Wow.
You're responsible for their whole life, their professional development, whether they eat or not. So like if you're on a mission or doing anything and say the first sergeant comes by and says, "Hey, did you eat?" And it's like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, near the end of lunchtime, they're going to come see you about that. Like, you need to make sure your soldiers eat.
Wow.
So you really learn accountability because there's no excuses. And you need to be a leader, because you're really in charge of men and their whole lives, not just their work performance.
Wow. So in other words, it may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. Because, me as a father, and a husband and stuff like that, I got to make sure that my kids eat as well, too. Even though my kids know how to make their own food, at the end of the day, I'm the one that's got to buy the food. I'm the one that has to put in, and I think that that's funny because in life, what you see a lot of is like a lot of what we call like blame shifting, right? You see a lot of people that shift the blame to others versus having some form of accountability for themselves in leadership, right? What do you think, like, for kids today, maybe there's something what are some of the lessons that you took out of that you could probably give somebody some advice today on?
I think that taking ultimate responsibility for your life is empowering. I think a lot of frustration, and I always talk about young men are very angry. That's a lack of direction, but also there's a sense of powerlessness because everyone's providing excuses for everything, right? So, oh, I can't make it because things are more expensive than they used to be, or, whatever, racial problems or whatever. And those things are true. Like, a lot of these things are true, but I mean, you're still responsible for your life. And it's very empowering if you take control of it and just take responsibility for everything.
Right.
Because once you take power, then you can do something about it. And you might have limited options, but you can still make the best of whatever options are before you.
Facts.
And so I think your whole worldview can change if you say, I'm in charge of my life. And I'm making life happen versus it's happening to me.
So, like, for example, as black men, right, we oftentimes hear the stigma of growing up in a household, single parent household, right? Or the goalpost is always moved, right? Or there's always something that gets implanted into our mind that we can't, or we can't get it because of X.
It's a sickness.
It's a sickness, right? And so from what you're saying is that if we replace those I can'ts with, it's going to be my responsibility too, right? We're going to actually change the narrative on where we're at.
There's a scene in Higher Learning where I think it's Mekhi Phifer is talking to Lawrence Fishburne, and he's the professor, and he's given all the reasons why he's disadvantaged. And Lawrence Fishburne just says, well, if there's a faster track runner than you, and he comes from a better school and has better training, what do you do? And Mekhi Phifer just says, run faster. So all your problems are real, but I mean, what are you going to do about it? It doesn't matter. It matters. But life is about balance and accepting things, but also taking the power back.
Right.
And so, yes, all these things affect you. But what are you going to do?
Right.
I mean, you could quit. I mean,
you could do that, right? That's always an option, right?
You can.
But if you make it your scapegoat all the time, then what are you really here for at the end of the day, right? What are we doing? I look at it like this, right? I look at it from a standpoint of there are people that go into what we call the survival mechanism. Okay, so I was explaining this to my wife the other day. Because as we continue to grow, our motto in our house is get 1% better every single day, right? If you get 1% better for the next 100 days, you're 100% better than what you were 4 months ago, right? So the thing is that oftentimes when things happen, we go to those survival mechanisms, the anxiety, the depression, the fear factor of things. We're scared to do this or scared to do that versus the essence of who we are, right? And the essence of who we are is exactly what? Well, what shows up when you do what happens when you walk into the room, right? And when I walk into the room, I know that faith just walked into the room. When I walk into the room, I know confidence just walked into the room. When I walk into the room, I know love and patience and leadership just walked into the room. So if you operate in the essence of who you are, no matter what, right? Even when things are going to happen, because that's the reality that we live in. And yes, bad things happen, bad things occur. Our situations are our situations that we were either born with or it is what it is. But if you operate in your essence, we're able to take those things and, and push aside the survival mechanisms and not make the excuses,
Yeah, for sure. I had two things. I think that, making things too big defeats people. And like you said, get 1% better every day. I think every day you just need to take it as a challenge and try to win whatever it is. Like, the gym has been important to me. So when I go, first getting to the gym, I accomplished that, right? Because not everybody does that. It's hard. Right. And then, if I did 10 reps, I'm going to try to do 11. And you're not always going to succeed at that, but you try to do that. The second thing is, regardless of your current situation, I kind of equate it to like a video game, right? Like beating the game on hard is more satisfying than beating it on easy. So, I mean, if you're in not the best circumstance or you don't have the best options, think about it a different way where this is your test or your challenge and try to win. If the game's harder, you still try to win, And I think there's more satisfaction from that. But the problem is people are looking at outside things and then looking at the results from those outside things and comparing your results to theirs. And that's not, I don't think that's good for your mental health. I don't think that's good to win. Like, you're just not going to do well with that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, as you were in the military, right, and you were coming out, were you only scheduled to do the 4, and you was like, I'm done after that, or?
I had a very, it's so weird, man, because I like literally lived my whole life plan. So I was going to join the military. I was going to do my time. I was going, and I was in for computer networking, which I barely got to do my job actually in the military. That's a whole another thing. But I always was going to leverage that into getting a good job, you know, an IT job that pays $100,000 a year. And I was going to use my income to buy real estate rental properties. And then I was just going to try to retire as quickly as possible by having enough rental properties that were going to pay my expenses.
Okay.
And I literally did all that except for the job thing, because when I got out of the military it was 2010. So that's right after the financial crisis. And all that. There were no jobs.
Yeah.
So all this
crash,
military, this military experience and you're going to be set wasn't really there. But I ended up using the GI Bill to go to college, which they pay for your living expenses and to go to school. And I had saved a lot of money. So this is crazy. I bought a tanning salon actually when I got out of the military.
Wow, okay.
While I was in college. Yeah. And I learned a lot about business through that. I think I paid like $30,000 for the business. And so I was a business owner straight from then, which is kind of crazy. I learned about marketing. I learned about inventory. That was a better education than the college education.
Wow. Yeah. So going into the tanning business, do you still have it today, or you?
Heck no.
All right. He's like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it a tough business, or?
It was trendy at the time because Jersey Shore and all that. Plus, a brown guy owning a tanning salon. It's crazy. But I always liked that because most of my clients were white. And, you know, they're paying me. So I kind of like that idea. But yeah, I didn't keep the business. I sold it. Probably broke even because I made a lot of money when it was trendy, and then it started going down. But I learned about all that kind of stuff with business, basically.
Isn't it amazing how certain things that you never really think are going to teach you, but they end up teaching you, right? So for me, it was dance. So, you know, me being a dancer for 20 years, first of all, I didn't plan on being a dancer. That's number one. I was just getting busy. You know, I was just dancing 13, 14 years old, seeing my cousins, going up to, you know, North Jersey and stuff like that, where my family is from, and seeing all the party dances they would do. And I would come down and I would do those dances at the parties down here in South Jersey. And then, you know, 19 years old, you know, sophomore in community college, was going to be an architect because I was good at blueprints in high school. So, because I took an architecture, you know, elective course. So I became really good at that type of stuff. And I was really just good because I just like putting stuff together, right? My mom was like, you know, you should go do it. That should be the thing that you do and everything for a living. So my mom kind of pushed me into that, but I really wasn't feeling it. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And dance has always followed me throughout my life, whether it's, you know, dance with my cousins at a family event or, you know, even in the clubs and parties. And then lo and behold, 19 years old, I started doing it and going to clubs and going to different spots and learning. It's amazing because I learned business through dance. I learned from, shout out to Mr. Wiggles, one of my OGs and everything. I don't know if you know who Mr. Wiggles is or anything like that. You probably know if you've seen the Usher My Way video. If you remember, like back in the day, they had a little battle. If you go back and check it out, right? Google the Usher My Way video. You'll see Usher battling Stefan Clemente, which is Mr. Wiggles. You'll see him battling him, and they got like these dope tie-dye graffiti jackets on, trench coats on, super fly. And he was in like a bunch of videos, Missy Elliott, like all that stuff. But anyway, he was the first one that I saw that was doing business for dance on a higher level. He was the only one that had a website. He was the one that had products on the website. So he would make instructional tapes, cassette tapes, VHS tapes, and sell them off the website. Took about a month to get there at the time, but once you got it, it was like, oh snap! And then he moved to the DVDs, and then and then I'm like, man, like I'm looking at this model, and I'm like, I can do this. I can take this model right here and do it for myself, and I started to learn so much more about doing my own thing, like doing my own videography, my own graphics and things in that nature. Hip hop showed me how to be a businessman, and in to what you're saying, a tanning business shows you how to.
Business is business, man. I mean, it's all kind of the same. I mean, different types of businesses have different disciplines, but they're very, business is business.
Yeah.
But for young people, I really think just do stuff. You know what I mean? Like, because people pressure you to do architecture, but you just naturally wanted to do dance. Like you were interested in it, right? Yeah. So I do that. I do like the podcast I do. I'm interested in videography, real estate, and I just do them. And if I don't like to do them anymore, I'll just stop doing it. Or if, or if one thing's working, I'll spend more time on that. I feel like a lot of people don't know what they want to do, which for me is crazy. But I get it, because you can't sit and think about what you want or like. You have to do the things.
You got to do the thing.
But people overthinking, now they're Googling, researching, and then they're taking in all this outside information, and then it kind of bogs you down. I really think people think too much.
Yeah.
Like, just do the thing.
Do it.
Like, you'll learn more that way. The first house I flipped, we made a million mistakes, and I had read a bunch about house flipping. You just don't know what you don't know till you do it.
Till you do it.
I'm not saying don't educate yourself, but you just got to do it.
I mean, yeah, because you're not going to literally be flawless off the bat. Like nobody is. No matter how much you read. I mean, look at, let's say, Peyton Manning, right? One of the greatest football players, quarterbacks of all time. His first year in the NFL, he threw 28 interceptions. Right?
Dang, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you know that, right? His rookie year, he threw 28 interceptions, but he ends up being an architect on the field. He learned more and more and more as he grew.
Yeah, and you got to build it up, right? So, like, if you're reading all this stuff, there's no context to understanding. Right. So you literally can't absorb the information anyway. Like, you have a theoretical idea about it, but I don't think it serves you well. I think you do it, then do an after action report. Oh, what mistakes did we make? Okay, here's how we can do better. I think that's a better method than to try to learn everything up front and then be perfect. It's just not going to work.
Are these some of the things that you being in the military, like, you learned?
That is a military process. So you would do, obviously you're going to have like a pre-mission meeting, and then you're going to have what's the after action report, which I find is super helpful. It basically gets everyone that was on the mission, and we go through everything that happened and the mistakes that were had and how to improve them. And I mean, that process is pretty flawless, really.
Let me break this down for the people at home, so in case you don't understand what an after action report is. In other words, debrief, right?
Yeah.
Debrief it, okay? And what we used to do in our events, dance events or speaking events and things in that nature, our team would get together and we would do a debrief. We would come up with what are some 3 things that were positive, what is one thing that we have to improve upon. Right, and every single person would come up with that one thing that we have to improve upon and 3 things that were positive, and what happened during the event, things of that nature. I just wanted to take a break real quick, just to let you guys know what he's talking about, to break it down for y'all. But back to you and everything right now, Ryan. So, all right, so we get into the military, and now you're into real estate. How long you been doing?
Over 10 years. So I bought my first property when I was in the military in 2010. I bought a 4-plex in Texas on a VA loan, 0% down. So that is an advantage of the military. But if you're a regular person, you can buy something at 3.5% down on FHA, similar. And so I lived in one unit and I rented out the other 3. Now, it was a lot cheaper because this is after the financial crisis. It was a short sale, meaning that they were losing the house, or they owed more than what the house was worth at the time. But yeah, I lived in one of the units. I let the property manager manage it. So I didn't even manage the property. I just pretended like I rented the property, because I would talk to the other tenants and stuff so that they wouldn't tell me a sad story and me give them a break on the rent and everything.
Right. Facts. Wow, that's smart, man. So now you're up to, how many units are you up to now?
I have 10 units.
10
So
units.
I'm slow and boring, you know what I mean? Like I just do for sure deals. Like I don't reach for stuff. I think it's real popular now, like Airbnbs, and people are renting out cars, and cryptocurrency, and people are trading penny stocks. I feel like there's such bad information out there, or like that's not investing. You're chasing things, and I think that's hurting a lot of people, and that a lot of people getting into crypto, losing a lot of money, they're going to never want to invest again because they're like, it's a scam, blah, blah, blah. But that's because they were chasing these get rich quick schemes. I buy a property, I'm cool if it makes $400 a month.
Really?
Now, most of my stuff does way more than that, especially because real estate prices are way up.
Right.
And you see your net worth go up the more property you own. So, you know, I'm over 13 years now of investing. I'm like, I always tell people I'm like half retired, you know. My living expenses are paid.
Right. So you have a property manager that manages all those properties?
Only my out-of-state stuff. So because I wouldn't recommend anyone to do this. I think you should hire a property management company. But I do property management here in South Jersey because I'm an agent. I own my own company. I have the contractors. We flip houses. I have a lot of resources to be able to do that. I don't recommend other people do that, but it just makes sense for us as a business to manage people's properties.
Gotcha.
So we manage our own in portfolio, and we manage other people's properties in the area.
So with that being said, so you flip houses and you own properties as well too.
I don't love flipping houses, but we do flip houses because we need to generate the money to buy more properties that we just rent out.
Got it.
Because look, if you bought a property a year, you're going to be a multimillionaire by the time, you know, probably in 10 years, honestly. Even now, because real estate's up 45%, right? So if you own two $200,000 properties, don't let me do the math on point, but I mean, you almost doubled your net worth in 5 years right now. So that's more money than anybody makes, you know, at most people for their salary.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. You know, as we're having this conversation, you know, one thing came to mind. You know, you said it earlier before we got on. You said that you're a toxic individual. How is it that, you know, military, you know, a businessman, where does the toxicness come from? Because my audience is probably like, well, where exactly is he toxic at?
All right. So I'm kind of kidding, but on the outside, I feel like it would come across that way. Man, how do I talk about this? All right. So I think I'm self-confident, and actually not, which maybe we get into too. It's weird. It's a duality there.
Yep.
But I just say the thing that I think needs to be said, and I don't really worry about how people feel about it per se, which could be bad. And I think, especially, you know, when we're on a podcast or anything like that. No, actually in real life, like I'm just going to be direct and tell you, call it how I see it.
Yeah.
Also, I think I am firmly believer in my current ideology, right? So what I believe is what I believe, and I'm going to say it that way. That doesn't mean I'm not flexible. I'm always changing. I'm always evolving, especially the last 3 years. But why be like unconfident in the things that you think? So I think that comes across as toxic.
I could dig it.
Yeah.
I mean, I really don't see that.
And I like to have fun now.
Yeah.
I was talking to my mom. So I was talking to my mom, and I was like, I think I'm living life in reverse though, because I was so serious.
Right. Planning everything out.
From 16 years old, man. I didn't go out. I party a little bit in Germany and stuff like that, but I don't think I ever liked it at the time. I stayed in my room. I saved money. I read. I did all that stuff to get to this point now where I'm enjoying life more. So now I feel like I'm acting how most people would act in their 20s, in my 30s.
Your 30s.
And I was acting like a 40-year-old in my 20s. So, but I think it's a better way, right? Because I could do whatever I want.
Right. Because if you really think about it, putting yourself in a position to where you're at now,
I can afford to mess up stuff.
You can afford, right?
Yeah.
Right. Versus when you're in your 20s, you can't really afford that stuff. You're saying I just want to live my 20s out. Cause I'm a serious, person too. People will look at me and be like, "Yo, like, do you ever smile?" And I'm like,
"That's why I'm nervous to come on here, man."
Listen. I am very, I'm about my father's business. I put it like that, right? I'm about my father's business, and I take that serious all the time. And sometimes some things are just not a laughing matter to me. However, right, if something's funny, I'll laugh. If something itches, I'm gonna scratch it.
Right.
It's just that simple, right? But I think that, coming from the upbringing that I came in, my parents, I was put into an uncomfortable position at 10 years old. So at 10, like, I think I shared this on your podcast, that my family, my mom and dad, my dad was in the army, my mom was working for the AME church. Both their jobs took them away from Jersey. So it was either become the military family that travels from spot to spot, or move all the way halfway across the country to the Midwest into St. Louis, right? And be away from everyone. So my mom and dad were making a decision on, is it healthy to take our kids out of the environment that they're already growing up in? Now, we can keep them there because we feel a little bit more comfortable. But at the same time, what's going to be uncomfortable is the distance apart, right? So for me, I knew that taking care of my sister was a top priority. Making sure that she was good was a top priority. Different things that I've experienced, even, from a protection standpoint for her, it was, a top priority. And I remember a time where I got jumped in front of my sister. It was probably the most embarrassing thing ever for me. But the fact is that what I showed her getting up and still walking home after they finished doing what they did. You know what I'm saying? It was like 7 dudes.
Who would jump you, man?
Listen, man.
You're a nice guy.
Listen, man. You think so, man? I appreciate that, man. Listen. But you know why? I got jumped? I got jumped because it was over a girl.
Always.
It was over a girl that I didn't like no more.
Oh my goodness.
You know what I'm saying?
The women, man.
And it was
Don't
just
get me
like
started. That's why I'm really toxic.
Right. Yeah. I was like, listen, I was just telling the truth. I was just like, yo, I don't think this is gonna work. I was in like the 6th grade, bro.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, was I in 6th? No, I was in 8th grade. I was in 8th grade. And I'm like, yo, fam.
You broke up with the girl?
I broke up with the girl.
People came and beat you up?
Dude, it was 2 weeks, man. It was just 2 weeks. I didn't
that
think
happens to me now. Like, they don't physically beat me up, but they try to beat you up.
Listen, man, but
But that's why I say I'm toxic, because
I could dig it.
I'm unyielding in that, though. I think I'm right.
So tell me, when you mentioned on your podcast that you were in a long-term relationship, got out of it, and that's probably one of the reasons why you started the podcast, right? So let's dive in a little bit on that. Like, what happened? How did that even transpire to where you feel, and where you're at today with that?
I have a lot of relationship experience.
Okay.
I feel like dating and all that stuff is radically different from 10, 13 years ago.
Okay.
I'm a different person, and I'm in a different place in life. And so it's like, I don't know, it's like you froze me in time and then dropped me off in 2020, and it's hard to deal with it. And, I have a very rigid idea about the type of relationship and family I want to have. I don't know if that's realistic for
what
today.
is it?
I think just a more traditional family style.
Okay.
The man is the leader of the house. I take care of most things, and that, I don't know, perfect. The Leave It to Beaver lifestyle, I guess.
Okay. You think you say you feel like that's not realistic? Why?
I think that the ideology that we have today is not conducive to that.
Are you looking at that like on a more macro level of like women as a whole, like they may not subscribe to that?
I've dealt with a lot of women recently,
Yeah.
and I find this as a trend.
Mm.
I'm not saying everyone, obviously, but there is it's weird because people get mad at me. I think that you need some practicality when you approach relationships, just because it's not everybody. If it's a majority, it's going to be challenging.
Well, where are you finding these girls at?
See, this is where I'm toxic because, I like a fun girl that's kind of out there a little bit. And
Okay.
It don't make sense, right?
Okay.
Like what I naturally am drawn to is probably not what's going to get me to what my conscious mind wants to build as far as a relationship.
Right. So
I don't know how to.
have you ever thought about changing the environment of where you are looking?
I don't go outside.
I mean, maybe you should.
Outside is rough, man. I don't know.
Maybe you should. I mean, listen.
Where do you go? What does that mean in practicality?
Okay,
That's what I want to know.
All right, so let's think about it like this, right? All right, I give it to you. So
where do I go? The library?
If we don't go, no, not the library, but if we don't go online, right? Because that's not traditional.
That's true.
You want a traditional woman, but you're not going to find traditional woman in a modern day type of, society living
Everyone's
today,
online,
right? Not everybody, right? So I didn't find my wife online.
No, I'm not
right?
saying you would find them online, but they be online.
They do, but here's what I'm saying. If you go outside, right? Let's say you can go, I don't know, supermarket.
Kenny?
You can go to supermarket. You can go to church. You can go to anywhere where you're in an event, someplace. Maybe it's a business event. Maybe it's in a space where
Dangerous.
There's interest where you're at. Where do you go? Right?
I don't know, man.
So if you continue to stay inside, then you're going to get them inside things. Right? But if you want something from an outside perspective, right, then you're going to have to indulge and engage outside.
I have this plan to go to Africa.
Okay.
I'm going to Kenya in the wintertime. We'll see how that works out.
Let's see how that works out. you just may find your wife in the motherland.
But I think I'm being romanticizing the idea, so we'll see what happens.
But sometimes it happens.
But they have more traditional values. So
they do. But here's the thing. Sometimes it happens when you're not even looking.
I know. I battle that. I don't know because I think a lot of women say that, but then you're only going to get what you get. I think you need to be intentional.
I think,
or maybe not. I don't know.
Here's the thing.
I don't have the answers.
Here's the thing. Here's how me and Josie, how we got together. We were not looking for one another. We were actually coming out. Both of us were coming out of relationships at the time, and we had always just been cool peoples. Our oldest daughter, which is her first daughter, was my student at 7 years old. So we knew each other because I taught our daughter.
See, that's dangerous. That's dangerous.
Hey, listen,
you're mixing business and pleasure a little bit.
Here's the thing.
I've done that. That did not work out good.
At the time, it wasn't business because she had moved away.
Oh, okay.
So I had taught her. And then my wife ended up she actually got married, moved to Hawaii.
Oh, goodness.
For some time, and then came back. And when she came back, I was like, hey, like, welcome back, blah, blah, blah. And, she was telling me what happened. I was telling her what I was going through. We were kind of just there for one another. And then it just kind of meshed and went well together. It wasn't something I was necessarily looking for, though.
That makes me think that this does make me toxic because I'm not perfect, right?
Okay.
But my whole life, I've gotten everything I ever wanted, how I wanted to have it. And that does not work with people, right? Mm-hmm. But that's just, and I'm getting older, so I'm set in my ways, so... The tolerance and then I tried a situation where I was more tolerant and I feel like I got walked on a little bit. So right now the arc of me and dating, I don't know.
All right, so here's the thing.
I don't know what's going on.
Here's what I can tell you, right? And this is just from experience, right? I've been with my wife for 10 years. Okay, we never broke up ever. Not one breakup. Not like, oh, we need to take a break.
Right.
None of that. So the one thing that we we have is that foundation, right? Remember we were talking about on your podcast and I was talking about the foundation of things, right? And I think that the one thing that you have to have in any relationship is some form of a foundation. If one person is sand and the other person is rock, it ain't gonna work, right? But if you got two people that are rock solid, then you both can build a working relationship that will last the test of time.
I think the problem today
Okay.
is that there's an ego battle that's happening, and therefore you never get to build any kind of foundational elements because both people are like, oh, are they getting too much? Or am I giving too much? Or like, it's always like this, I don't know the intentions of the other person thing that's going on. I feel like is happening.
Right.
On both sides. Yeah. I mean, I understand why women would do it. I understand why men would do it. And then people are more disposable now, right? So it's much easier to just be like, I'm not, because building a foundation, you're going to have to hurt your back. You're going to have to sweat. You're going to have to put the blocks down. You're going to have to put the mortar down.
You're going to have to build something.
Well, why build it when you can just go somewhere else where the buildings...
You can do that.
That's what people
you can do that. I mean, you could do that, but then now we're talking about we're going into sandcastles. Eventually, they're going to crumble.
They're cool, yeah. But it requires everyone to be on the same understanding.
You think that everybody can be in the same understand?
So for me, one of my recent relationships, I was like, all right, these things are bothering me. There's a lot of a lot of arguing and stuff in the beginning. And normally I'm kind of cool with that because I feel like you have to figure out how to work with people and coexist with people. So I actually don't think it's a big problem to argue / discuss things as far as how you're like, I think that helps to build a foundation. But I was and I usually don't let things slide that really bother me after a while, but I was kind of letting stuff slide. But it never got better. And it's just like, I felt bad about myself. They started kind of making me feel bad. And usually I don't do that. But I was like, maybe I'm being I want everything the way I want it, all that. So I was making more compromises. And this is a sample size of one. Okay. So, but I don't know. That approach.
I'm not saying that's bad at all. Because I don't think that we should... yes, there has to be compromise. However, if I'm doing something that my wife does not like and she lets me know, then it makes me aware of what it is that I'm doing, then I have to understand that, hey, you know what? I need to change this because I love this person that much and I'm willing to do that. I give you an example. My wife gets on me on this like all the time. So we're driving to church, right? As we're driving to church, we're getting on Route 70 and we're coming around off of Cuthbert, going on to Route 70. There's a stop sign that is at the end off the ramp. I normally go past the stop sign just a little bit so that I can see what cars are coming out. That's how I like to do it, okay? She feels that I'm going too fast and I'm doing a rolling stop, and it bothers her so much that she gets really, really antsy and everything about it because I'm rolling past the stop sign and she feels like we're going to get hit, which we're not because I'm in control in the car. But it gets her very upset. So this past week on the way to church, I rode around and I went around the bend 15 miles an hour, very, very slow. And I stopped for her sake. Right.
Oh man.
And then
triggered.
And then pulled out to look and did everything the correct way as if they would teach you in driving school. Right. For her. But for that reason, she was like, thank you so much. Like, I truly appreciate it. Like, she appreciated me listening to her. And I said, no problem. It was a small tweak, but for her sake and for the sake of the argument, I said, you know what? I got you. No problem. And we kept it pushing.
I'm triggered.
Why are you triggered?
Because the principle of that bothers me.
Okay.
Because she wanted you to drive.
Yeah.
Shout out to your wife. I'm not talking to her, but if somebody I'm with, I'm like, yo, you want me to drive? I'm freaking driving.
Right.
But that goes to a further principle. If you trust me to drive and you want me to drive, I know how to drive.
Right.
And back to the traditional thing, I'm probably a little older, more experienced than my counterpart, right? Rock with it. Yeah, right. That would really bother me.
Right. I hear you.
And I get you that it's nice, but now we got to go slower.
Right.
And I think in a bigger context or something more relevant, that could be really a big problem. Like with business or something, she's slowing your business down. Like that. I like
hear
it.
you. I hear you. But at the same time, as a leader, I take into the account of all the others that are also in the car as well too. Right?
But you're just accounting for their feelings that are not relevant to the reality of how you're driving.
Not exactly. What I'm doing is that I'm showing my children that, hey, listen, this is how mom and dad, let's coexist here, right? Did I slow it down just a little bit for her? And on top of that, was it a big deal for me, right? Was it that big a deal for me to actually change it? You know what? No, it's not a big deal, right? However, depending on the situation, if it's something that I'm not changing because I know that this is the way that it should go, then that may be something different. However, on this particular situation, you know what? Let me deal with that. Let me go ahead and let me have this conversation with myself. Is it that big of a deal? Do I really want to go through it with her or whatever every time? I don't have to. And the one thing that I want all the time is peace. I need peace to think. So at the same time, on the flip side, right, there are things that my wife would do or used to do that bothered me. And she changed those things for me because I'm like, yo, I can't do this. For example, when we first got together, it was very argumentative because we both came out of crazy relationships. And I said, listen, I remember a time when my wife she was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I think we need to be done. I said, listen, I'm not doing this with you. I'm not going through the whole break up, get back together type of thing. If you walk out that door, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. Like I'm not doing that. If you leave, I'm not doing that. And she didn't. She thought about it because we're going to go through stuff. But what we can't do is the whole break up, get back together thing.
I don't like even speaking that way.
Yeah.
I don't. That's the thing that I think is important. Like, don't even joke. Don't we're not talking about.
But that's the culture that we grew up in. Right? Mm-hmm. That's what's painted to us as what's normal. Mm-hmm. And I think because that's what's painted to us as normal, we oftentimes subscribe to that type of thinking, as in this is the way a relationship is supposed to go, when in reality it's not.
Yeah, my parents argued all the time.
Okay.
They would go in another room, but I hear them arguing, and it was very frequent. So maybe that has an impact. Right. But I think that could. Well, I mean, it works for you, but it's just like, is it a slippery slope? I feel like you start conceding, and it's going to be harder and harder to draw a line somewhere. And so I do get concerned with that.
I honestly think that is...
Maybe it's coming from a place of disingenuous women that is just trying to extract, and that's another problem, is I feel like a bit of a target now. So that's another problem, because they think I'm rich. I'm broke. I'm not actually rich, right? I'm not rich. Thank you. And but they see me as a target. I wonder, Kenny, actually, I'm glad I remembered this, because I was thinking, imagine if you were single now and you have a podcast and your internet presence. It's like that Megan Good thing with the pastor guy, right?
Yeah.
They would know how to talk to you.
Right.
And it would be really hard to tell the difference. They're professionals. It would be. I'm telling you, because I had one.
Wait.
Explain.
Wait.
They know my ideology. They know how I'm coming.
Okay.
Because they see stuff like this. They see how I'm coming.
Right.
They know what I say I like. What blah blah blah. they know what to say. They know how to pretend.
Right. And they know how to trigger you.
And I'm kind of open. Like, I'm pretty open to seeing how things goes. And I feel like I would make myself vulnerable. Like, if you're gonna screw me over, it's cool. Like, I can handle it, right? To a certain degree. It's just like gambling, right? I'm not gonna gamble money where I'm gonna lose my house, but I'll lose some money, and I'm open like that with relationships, with how I feel about stuff, coming to my house, blah blah blah, stuff like that. So yeah.
So what are the things that what are the deal breakers here? Like, why haven't you been, like, so successful? I mean, outside of the ego thing, is there not a compromise in the relationship? Is there different beliefs on how a relationship should go? Like, what are some of the things that why you feel like you haven't been that successful?
Well, I actually have been successful. I probably could have stayed in my relationship that I was in for 10 years. Or probably could have. There were some traumatic things.
You've been in a relationship for 10 years. So so 10 years, that's a long time.
I know how to maintain a relationship for sure. I have a lot of experience. I know how to do that. And actually, I think I'm a very good communicator. I know how I feel. I'm very self-aware.
So it's clear that she loves you and everything for 10 years if you guys were together for that long, right? So I'm confused as to.
Well.
And don't get me wrong, I know
she be watching everything, so I gotta be careful how I talk about it. But man, it's hard to say because this is why I'm so radically different now, because certain things never sat right with me. So I feel like I subscribe to popular culture and like popular narratives, feminism and all this stuff. Women are like work 50-50, boss chick, blah blah blah. So I would kind of push her to stay on my level financially and stuff like that, which I think is totally backwards now.
Yes.
But she would do stuff that I feel like consciously I would say is okay, but in the back of my mind would bother me. And I think this is more of the toxic masculinity stuff. Like, I don't know, certain things, how you dress sometimes bother me. How she would move in a room, like in public, kind of bothered me. How she present herself bothered me. But I would never say anything because I'm thinking that's toxic by not liking it, right? That's why this whole revolution of more like men-centric content kind of woke up certain things about me, because they were things that I felt but never knew the language for, or never knew like that it was okay to feel that way about certain things. And that's why I joke with the toxic thing, because I think it's okay for me not to like that you're wearing that outside.
Absolutely.
I think it's okay for me not to like what you post on social media.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of those type of things, I think it's okay if I don't want you to go to a certain place. Because, if you're going to be the leader and in charge of your safety, protection, all that kind of stuff, just like the soldiers, right? Like if one of my soldiers is going to the club, a certain club that we know is a fight with Americans in Germany with the Turks and all that every time, I'll tell you not to go there. That's controlling now, but like it's for a good reason. You know what I'm saying? And the problem is that's triggering for a lot of women now, because there's a lot of buzzwords around that. Yeah. So that's kind of the type of stuff that I'm talking about. And so I think just in this current time, if you start having those positions, it's toxic. And so they just don't agree with you.
Yeah.
But that stuff is coming from a good place. And I do have good intentions. You know what I mean? I think the other problem is on both sides, every relationship that doesn't work is damaging you in some kind of way. And now you're more skeptical and more like jaded over time. I think everybody is. Yeah. But, so if a woman's dealing with a controlling guy who's a bum, obviously, why would you follow a bum? So now it's harder for you to follow a guy who actually has his stuff together and does have good intentions for you. So I get that.
Because people don't know how to separate people. Right. And when we don't know how to separate individuals, as in, this woman is a completely different person from the person that I was with. That's like basically me saying, okay, if I was to treat my wife like every other woman, that I was with, then we probably wouldn't be together right now.
Right.
Right? I was married before. If I was to treat her like my ex-wife, then it probably wouldn't be where it's at.
But we do learn things
Correct.
from relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is, you are carrying something.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what you choose to carry and don't carry is very
I
complicated.
more so learned more things about myself.
Mm.
What did I do wrong in the last relationship that I don't want to do moving forward? It's more going back to that self-accountability thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't want to, I look at my mistakes on what I did completely wrong, not necessarily of what she did wrong all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Although those things are in my mind, it's not going to overshadow what it is that I need to do better for me, because at the end of the day, I know I have to be the best version of myself for this new relationship that I'm in. I don't want to be what I was before. However, I want to take the things that I hold true to myself, the things that I know that are right, and moral, and I know that I have good intention, because I know that there is someone that will appreciate that. You were saying something that, if your ex girl, you didn't like something that she wore, if you didn't like she was going somewhere, something like that, that she may push back on that, right? For my wife, she will always ask me, "Hey, does this look good? Hey, you don't see anything, right? Like I'm covered all the
Right.
way." You know what I'm saying? Because that's how my wife is. And the fact that she asks me as her husband means a lot,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like you don't want to, because from a biblical standpoint, the two shall become one. I represent you, you represent me. We're a union, we're
I
together. That's
believe in
what a
that.
marriage is, right? So therefore, once we go out, people look at us. They're not just looking at you. So so I think that is more traditional. I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. I don't think your views on that are bad at all. It's just maybe you haven't gotten to the point of, you know, going in the right environments to seek those people that have
Oh,
those like
definitely.
minded.
And so on the accountability side, because I've been talking about kind of how the women are acting, or at least the women I'm dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally at a loss in general. I don't know how to be. I don't know how to choose. I don't know what environments to be in. And that's from self auditing. And I think what I'm naturally drawn to is not good. Um, and then I don't know what the give and take is. I don't know where I should compromise and not compromise.
Mm.
Like, trust me, I don't know. You know what I mean? And I know that I don't know. But I've come to a point where I feel like I've unraveled everything, where now I'm at a loss, where I'm like friend zone only lately.
Mm. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. I've
yeah.
been
But you know what I think is good? What's good is that you're sitting there saying, "Yo, I don't know."
I definitely don't know.
And that's okay that you don't know. However, here's what I would say. I would always, my pastor said this, evaluate your circle like your life depends on it, because it does, right? So the
Hmm.
first thing that you have to do is, who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are the people that you're surrounding yourself with? Are you surrounding yourself with men that have wisdom? Are you surrounding yourself with women that have wisdom? What's the circle kind of like? The three people that you hang out with the most, what do they do on a normal basis, right? And who are the ones that you talk to constantly? I know for me, I always talk to people that are older than me. I have like one or two friends, maybe Matt right here is probably one of my youngest friends that I have, that I talk to on a daily basis. Other than that, it's either we're in the same age range, like you were born in the 80s, or um or not. Like I'm talking to somebody that was born in the 70s and 60s and 50s, and having conversations with them all the time, because I'm not trying to go backwards. I'm looking to go forward. Okay. I've already done 30. I've already done 25. If I am talking to somebody that's 25, 30 years old, it's me passing on the wisdom that I got from someone that was 50, 60, 70 years old to them. I'm not trying to hang out with those people at all either. I'm just giving them this wisdom for the season, and we moving forward. when it comes to relationship standpoint, you gotta look at your circle like that as well too. Like who are the people that I hang around? What are the values and beliefs that we all have? And if we're all going down the same path, we're all single, we're all drinking, we're all doing this, we're all doing that, we're all doing things or whatever that are just wasting time. What are we really doing?
It's my married friends that made me break up with my girl of 10 years.
How is that? Well, why is that?
Don't look happy. Doesn't. I know it. I know it. It's melancholy. Ugh. I don't see good examples.
Let me ask you a question really quick before you continue. You was with her for 10 years. Did marriage ever come into play?
I think something always sat wrong with me, and I never addressed it. I would never be in a relationship that long like that. You know what I mean? Like now, I think that's crazy. Like that's crazy to me. I think I don't want her to feel bad but I never felt like she represented me well, and that's what a lot of family members would tell me, right? But we had a good chemistry, and we would coexist pretty well. Well, okay, so here's what happened with the relationship, though. She lived with me not the whole 10 years, but probably like 4 or 5, right? And her daughter lived because she was from Philly, so we had a better school district and all that stuff when I bought a house here in Jersey. So I was pretty adamant about her bringing her daughter because she would be better off, right? And then like shortly after she moved with us, her baby's father went to jail, and then he passed away. And he was pretty negative towards me, you know what I mean? And she, I'm helping her, with his daughter, you know what I'm saying? So that never sat right with me. And my ex was severely depressed. And that really pissed me off because I'm kind of holding the household down, and she's no longer like handling her household stuff and depressed over a guy that I don't want to speak ill of, but I just really did not sit well with me, and that's was the catalyst.
Yeah.
But if had that not happened, I probably would have just sat in the situation and been melancholy.
Yeah. I understand.
Because my friend got married at the same, and he just when they was together, it just never sat right with me. I said, I never want to live this life.
Yeah.
I take risks, like with the business stuff. Like I take risks. I mean, not cryptocurrency risks, but I didn't live inside the box. I went for what I wanted to get. So I don't want to have some mid situation. But maybe that's the nature of it.
Listen, I understand your feelings. And I understand her feelings on feeling depressed, even in a good situation. Because you got to think about it. How many people that live well are still depressed no matter what it looks like from a materialistic standpoint, right? Not saying that you weren't doing your job, right? But at the same time, when you create life with a person and then they're not here anymore, you do think about those things, right? You think about it. Whether he was a good, I don't know the guy or nothing like that. Whether you good guy, bad guy, whatever the case may be, you think about those things, unfortunately. And it's like, man, it could be a Debbie Downer. But that's why I say that foundation is so important, right? That's why I am adamant about people making sure that they have a relationship, with the Most High. Like having that relationship brings clarity to all, because when you have that relationship, then there is no more confusion, because confusion is the art of the enemy at the end of the day. That's not a work of the Most High. That's not a work of God. God didn't create confusion. So therefore, if there is anything that is not of God, it's always going to be the Debbie Downer of someone's situation, especially even in relationships. So it's important for us as individuals to have that, and this is just my take, like to have that personal relationship, and I'm not speaking religiously, I'm speaking relationship from a real relationship standpoint. I think our first relationship should be with the one who created us, because the reality is we didn't ask to be here.
Well, I think that helps with the foundation.
Right. Yeah.
That's
We agree.
I think that's I think we're far away from things that hold us foundationally together before we build our own foundation, right? You know, like there's no cornerstone. So it's hard to even put the first brick down because there's no, like you're saying, faith can be that.
Yeah. I think that this is me giving you some brotherly advice, right? I think that when you decide that you want to take it to another level in your faith, then God will start to bless you in the areas of where your heart truly desires. Because the Bible does speak of, he will grant your heart's desires, right? According to his will and his purpose. But you have to have a form of submission that I'm going to put my flesh under submission and allow my mind and my spirit to be submitted, to the Most High at the end of the day. And when you decide to do that, yes, you're going to be tested. Yes, things may feel like they're going to get worse, right? Because the enemy probably has you right where he wants you, comfortable. You're making money. You're in a good position. However, he knows that there's this battle, so he tries to continue to force feed the things and everything that are probably not necessarily good for you at the end of the day. And you know this to be true as well, right? Like
I've had more problems now than ever.
Because it's a battle that's happening right now. There's like this tug of war on your spirit. And when there's this tug of war on your spirit, right, there's always going to be this spiritual warfare that's happening around you that you can't necessarily see with the naked eye, but you know that is happening. But that's where you have to sit there and understand that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience, right? So it's the opposite. It's the other way around. So you put the spirit over the flesh. And when you do that, right, and you submit to that and you commit to that and you make that full-blown commitment, that's when the foundation starts to develop even more. Because what's going to happen is that the things that the enemy tries to attack you on, the foundation is being built, that there's going to be this force field that can't be penetrated.
That's exactly what's happening. I really feel it. Like they say, success brings like more issues and stuff like that. And there is a spiritual battle happening with me for sure.
Yeah.
That's why I'm confused. Like you said, there's a lot of confusion and unknowing. It's funny, the submission thing that you're talking about, it made me think of the Malcolm X documentary when he didn't want to kneel.
Yes.
That's probably where I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's a process, you know what I mean? So I don't know what you do about that, but it just made me think of that.
Listen, I'm speaking from a biblical standpoint because I know what the principles of what the Word of God has done for me in especially the last 10 years, the last decade. And spending a little more than a decade without God versus spending the last decade with him, my challenges, my resiliency has been so much better. I'm not as flustered when challenges arise. I don't have a problem kneeling because in his word it says that every knee shall bow, right? To know that I am God. And whether you bow now or bow later, you're going to do it, right? Because we all going to meet our maker at the end of the day. And I feel that there is that thing that's brewing inside you. Remember, I challenge you to start taking a look deeper, because if you really want to find the truth and as to why you're even having this warfare, this back and forth, then you got to really start reading on the truth and what the truth actually is. And you got to start reading in, okay, well, what does the Bible actually say? And you know what's so funny is that I'm not sure if you're a Joe Rogan fan or anything like that, but I've been seeing some clips of Joe Rogan surfaced lately, and him actually coming to Christ a little bit more, and actually dabbling in kind of like inviting other believers on his podcast to kind of learn a little bit more, and actually diving into the book of Revelation, seeing what it says about today's times and things of that nature, how they both correlate. And it's kind of amazing to see, someone like that who was anti God for the longest is actually having these conversations, because maybe on the inside he feels a little bit like you. Maybe on the inside he's like, well, I have some success from a material standpoint, and I've been through some things, and I've had these relationships, but what I truly desire is that family. What I truly desire is the things that I know that will help make me whole, and raise up a family, and raise up and pass on the legacy to my children, that not for me, but for them and for others and for other people, because that's kind of like what we do it for, in a sense, and servicing those people. So the challenge really becomes is, are you going to start to dive in a little bit more and read upon to see if you discover what it is that God truly has for you? Because really what lies, is the true treasures of God is like a mystery, but we have to be in tune with him in order to, understand what that treasure really is and what he really has for us. So real estate and the things that you have, that may be something that is going to sustain you from a financial standpoint. You have a lot of the biblical traits. You're a good steward over your money, right? You're not frivolous with it. You hold traditional values because you come from a traditional household, right? You have structure. You have organization. Like, these are all the things and everything that, biblically speaking, on what the Bible speaks about. But at the same time, you have this battle of confusion that you're going with. But that's where you have to put yourself in a position of, well, how did you learn about real estate? You learn from people who do it. You learn from people who understand it. How did you learn how to be a good soldier? You were under someone who was a great soldier, right? Well, how do I learn how to be a better man, right? Well, guess what? You got to get with other men that are doing it at a high level, and it may not be from a monetary standpoint, but from a wisdom perspective.
Yeah, I agree.
I didn't mean to go on a tangent right
No,
there, but Matt, I wanted to get you in here real quick, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll I know we ain't got the mic and everything over here, but what's some of your thoughts so far?
Nah, I think it's good. I think about the interview that we had, and it's like, no matter what you have, there's always still going to be that void and that desire and something in you that's just going to need more, that only God can fulfill. Some people is monetary, some people is relationships, some people is just getting like clarity and understanding, like, is Jesus really that guy? Because there's so much information out there. But it's something it's like almost gonna be like a thorn in your flesh. It's gonna plague you. And I believe you said it perfect.
Yeah.
That this is really just the invitation in order to find those different things.
That's deep.
I spent my 20s, we'll say, focus on career business. So it's weird. It's so weird. You meet all those goals, and then you're just like, eh. And so I feel like with relationships and with faith and that kind of stuff, I'm like 0 years old. You know what I'm saying? So I realize that. So it's a process, and I'm learning. I'm growing, but it is weird that you think things are important and then you get them, and then there's more things, or just the more balance is finding more balance.
I think I agree. I think that for me, it's been, there are things that I want. I want to. I've experienced Italy. I've experienced Japan. I've experienced Bulgaria, other international countries, but my family hasn't.
That's nice, yeah.
So because my family hasn't, my desire is I want them to see the other parts of the world that are amazing. I want them to taste the different foods. I want them to see, hey, this land that we live in, it's more here than just New Jersey, right? So, but at the same time, I know that when I get there, once they get it, okay, they've experienced it, then it's going to be that one next factor. However, from a faith standpoint, there's always more. There's always more. The thing is that no matter where you're at in life, no matter how far you go, it's never ending. There's always something. And no matter how many times you read the Bible, in these 66 books, you're always going to find something that's pertaining to your life in this particular moment. It never stops. That is the most incredible thing that I think has been ever created. And I think that I get the stigma of how church and Jesus have left some form of a stain due to people misquoting or misusing the word, which has deterred people away and give them some pushback, like, I don't know about that, right? I get it. But it's not until you get to a point where you just can't take it no more. And you've got to find out the truth for yourself, and you can't go off of what other people say. Not even me. I'm giving you, from my perspective, if your heart's desire is to have that family, which I have, right? The wife, the children, and all that stuff, that if that's the desire, then he will teach you what to do. He'll teach you how to get it. He'll even teach you how to build it. But what he's not going to do is build it for you, right? That's going to be your part. You're going to have to do that work. You can read about it. You can study it, right? And you can see it done. But at the end of the day, there's not going to be no miraculous, like, boom, right, here you go, here's your family and blah, blah, blah. No, you're going to have to do that work. But you have to understand the principles that it's going to take in order to get there.
Yeah, I feel you. I think, though, I think the language barrier when you're reading is a little challenging, you know, because I'll look at stuff sometimes, but then I don't.
What you reading, like KJV or?
I don't know, like, it's I wouldn't even know. But I don't know. I find that a little challenging because the language is.
Yeah.
I don't even know what they're talking about sometimes. Like, okay.
Well, this is why you have to be around people that know what they're talking about.
Right, and then it goes into like interpretation in some kind of way.
Well, not necessarily interpretation, but there are certain versions that help you a lot better, right? For example, the ESV, which is the English Standard Version, or the NLT, which is the New Living Translation, or the NIV, which is the New International Version. Those versions right there versus the KJV, which is the King James, which was written back in Old English times. I can't understand the there and thou and halves and all of that stuff, you know what I'm saying? Because it's a little confusing. However, when it's translated into how we understand it, then it becomes, oh, I get it. I understand what he's saying now. You understand? So it's all about the versions for me, that when I was just having a conversation with someone the other day, they were like, yo, like, what does that even mean? I sent my friend a Bible verse, and she was like, I don't even, understand what that means.
That's where it loses. I'm like, I don't know. And I'm not a big reader already. So
yeah.
Like,
and I was like, I said, listen, this is what you got to do. I said, yo, there are Bibles out there that they have the verse, and then at the bottom, they have the commentary. So the commentary, applying it to the verse, and once you see it, like, oh, okay, because they put it in a way that we understand. It's kind of like when we talk about parables.
What do you think about Jordan Peterson? Because I feel like he's a good entryway into that.
Jordan Peterson, I believe, is one of the most brilliant men of our time. That's number one. Let me just say that off the bat. He is a prime example of God can use anybody, because he even was, more from on the atheist type side years ago until the pandemic. And then I didn't know you knew it. Yeah. So then he started to learn about the Bible a little bit more and actually started teaching the Bible in his lectures. And
that's what I listened to a lot of Jordan Peterson.
I would listen
because I started very anti-religious, and
right.
probably Jordan Peterson made it palatable for me because you lose. I get lost on the literal stuff, but
Right.
if we're talking about the truth through a fable, the life truth, I can
Right.
get with that.
I
So
think
that's where
I think Jordan Peterson is a good starting point for you. Another person that I would recommend is Dr. Frank Turek. He has a book called "I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist," which is a phenomenal book, by the way. I would definitely recommend and pick that up. For anybody that's having any type of confusion on whether God is real or not, I would definitely pick up I don't have enough faith to be an atheist, and check that out. But Dr. Frank Turek and Jordan Peterson, I would put Dr. Frank Turek up here, Jordan Peterson like right here, because even Jordan Peterson, to me, even knowing what he knows about the Bible from a literal standpoint, Dr. Frank Turek is still like top notch and everything for me. But they're the way they speak and how you would understand, it's the same.
Yeah.
So I would navigate my way to them, and I actually send you some clips and stuff, because Dr. Frank Turek puts it in such a way that gets you to really think about, you know what? If he always asks the question, well, if Christianity is true, right, then X, like whatever the topic is. And it always makes the person who is challenging him think a little bit more about what your personal belief is. And I love the fact that he puts it into perspective of, okay, so if it's true, right, if we're all here for a reason, and what this Bible says is true, well, where does that leave you? And it always leaves the person in a confused state of mind, like, dang, like, I don't know where that's going to leave me. Because if it is true, then like the girl that was on your podcast, she was like, I'm going to be salty.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So where does that leave us at the end? At the end of the day, we all think about our own mortality. We all think about eternity. Like, are we going to be, with the Father? Are we going to be living in heaven? And outside of that, well, these other, religions don't really necessarily point to what Christianity is pointing to. So in my mind, I'm like, yo, I want to be in paradise. I want to be there, because I don't believe that we're here for nothing.
I don't know. I think I'm still existentialist, where I don't know. That we get to decide what our purpose and meaning is.
We do, because that's what we have, is free will. But that's also a gift. But where did that gift come from?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So if the gift came from somewhere, I give it to you like this, right? If I blow, you knew that I blew air.
Mm-hmm.
But did you see the air?
No.
You didn't see the air. But you know that it's there. And you know that you're breathing. You know that there's air in your lungs, because if you hold your breath, then you tend to start to suffocate and you start to feel different. The reality is that we have to understand and get to a point that we're being blessed at bare minimum at least 23,000 times just in one day, because that's how many breaths we take every single day scientifically. So if we take 23,000 and multiply it by how many days that we've been living, right? That's how many blessings we've been getting in just one area of our life. We're not talking about us talking, walking, eating, feeling, any senses, but they all come from somewhere. And we didn't create none of it. It just came with us once we were born. We didn't develop this. It was just there. So my belief, I have faith at the fact that I blew, air just came out. I have faith that when I leave this podcast, I'm going home to my family. I have faith that I'm going to my next destination, so on and so forth. Everybody has faith. The question really becomes is, do you have faith when it comes to the end? We all have faith throughout life every single day because we believe we're going to wake up the next morning.
But why do you need that?
Why do you need faith?
To the end.
Why do you need faith to the end?
Mm-hmm.
Because the reality is that you don't know, because you feel like I need faith in the end because I need to know that I'm with my creator. I need faith in the end that I believe that the one that created me, I'm going to meet him one day because I didn't create myself.
Not knowing is okay for me on that.
Okay.
It's scary, but I don't know. I feel like it's an unknowable.
Matt, how you feel about that?
I'm gonna talk to. I'm gonna share some things with him off the air.
I bet. Matt said you're gonna share some things off the air. So I'll put it to you like this, right?
I think that it helps humans to have an answer to that question.
Okay.
I think it could help you live a better life to have an answer for you that improves your life, right? But if we go literal, I don't know, you know?
Well, what's the opposite?
Nothing.
Why? How do you know that?
No, I'm not saying I'm not saying it is nothing. I'm saying I don't know.
But are you okay with so you're saying you're okay with not knowing?
Yeah, but
Like-
none of us know except for you decide to believe something.
Okay, but what I'm saying is from a paradise standpoint, from a hell standpoint.
Well, you could just not believe in that paradigm, though.
Okay,
you know?
but what if it's true?
Right. If it is, then yeah, then I guess you're screwed. I don't know. But then the counter argument, and I'm not saying I don't know where I stand on some of this stuff, but the counter argument is, what if you live your life based off of these principles and it's not true?
Then what would be the reason? Well, all right, so and that's fair to say, but at the same time, then why would we be created without a blueprint or the answers of knowing where exactly to go?
And that's the thing about all this, is that there is an underlying idea or belief that there is a purpose.
It's a narrow.
It doesn't. So, and again, I'm not saying that I have the answers, right? I'm just saying that it could well be that there is no purpose. No inherent purpose of the universe.
I don't think so, bro.
Right.
How can that be possible? How can it be possible that there's no inherent purpose? If there's a purpose for you to do real estate,
That's a self-derived purpose
but there's a purpose at the end of the day, right?
from inside of me, yes.
Correct. Right? So, but there's other things that are also inside of you.
What do you mean?
What I mean is, okay, so I give an example. And if we're talking about an eternal purpose, okay, the kingdom of heaven is in you, the kingdom of heaven is among you. Well, where is the kingdom of heaven? The Bible says that you can't point in the direction on where it's at. You can't sit there and say, hey, get on this place here and actually go there. It's something that's already in you. Okay, so the purpose is to seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will be added unto you. Well, all what things? All the things that, our heart's desires, right? Well, my heart desires to be with the Creator. Okay, so that'll be added unto me. I have faith in that at the end of the day, that that's going to happen. Like, there's not a doubt in my mind that that's not going to happen. Like, I believe wholeheartedly it's going to happen. Am I the perfect individual? No. Do I do bad things? Yes, every single day. However, right, I know through the blood of Jesus and everything that I am saved. Now, I believe that wholeheartedly. Okay. There are people that probably struggle with that, but I believe that because of my relationship. I believe that because I have things that don't normally happen. And when they happen, it's just, it can't be nothing but God at the end of the day, because it's not the enemy. It's not like, oh, I did all this work myself. It's none of that. It's things that have happened in my life in particular that's just not, it's not a coincidence. Like that's God, so that's me. So my faith stands firm on that because no person could just come up and if they did, then God, I knew that God sent them because most prayers are answered when it comes on two legs.
Okay.
I know it's like
I could do this forever. Like I get your framework. I just, I think it's equally plausible that there is no purpose.
Okay.
But
so what's your framework for no purpose though?
I feel like this is the way I always operate is, I can only do the best I can do or what I think is right.
And then at the end of your life, that's it. And there's nothing else.
You better make
you just go into the mist and
I don't know the answer, but I don't need to know the answer.
Okay, let's say you don't need to know, but what would you want?
Well, I don't think what I want really matters.
But let's say it does.
Sure, I would like to know.
What exactly would you want? Like, what would you want? Would you want to live in eternity? Like,
of course.
In the paradise. Okay.
Yeah.
If that's what you want, then say that's what you want, right? You don't know if that's true from your standards, right? But that's something that you would want.
Absolutely.
Because you wouldn't want to live in hell and high water.
Or you just turn the lights out and go, that's it.
And then you're just in darkness for the rest of your life. You just knowing that you're in darkness.
Well, you just don't exist anymore, I guess.
Well, but that's
pretty scary, right?
It is, right? But I don't believe that's impossible.
I don't think it's impossible.
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't think so, man. I don't think that we live here for such a time as this, and then we're here for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. Sometimes babies don't even make it a year, and then they just vanish. That's a pretty then what? Then that's no purpose.
I killed a fly that was in my house, and it's just, what happened to that?
Psh, listen, maybe the fly, maybe the fly is somewhere else at this point.
Maybe.
Which is, I believe, fly heaven, right? But the fact is that I don't. But my whole point, my whole point is that I don't want you to walk out of here feeling like there's no purpose in life, because even this conversation right here, there's a purpose for the conversation.
Who decides what that purpose is?
Well, I think this is already predestined. I think that this is already supposed to happen, and we're living out because, and again, I'm going off of, the word of God. He knows the end from the beginning, right? And if that's the case, if he knows the end from the beginning, that means he knows everything that's going to happen in between. What people are going to decide, how they're going to decide it, what's going to be the outcome, what's going to be the end. A good example would be the two men that died on the cross next to Jesus. Both of them, both of them were thieves. One man was like, if you are the Son of God, then get us off this cross right now. Basically challenging him. Get us off this cross. If you're the Son of God, if you're the one that has all the power to do all things, then get us off this cross, challenging him. The other man said, I believe you are the Son of God, and I've done some horrible things in my life, but don't forget me when you get to heaven. And Jesus turns to that man and says, you will be with me in paradise. Why? Because that man repented for the things that he had did wrong. If there's no purpose in life, then why do people have feelings of, I do wrong things, or I did something wrong, I did this wrong or that wrong? Because if there was no purpose in life, then you would just go out and do willy-nilly and whatever. But clearly this one felt, I did some wrong things in my life and I'm about to die. And at this last second, God forgive me for what I've done. With a genuine heart and truly meaning it, Jesus turns and says to that man, "You will be with me in paradise." The other one, we don't know where he went.
Yeah, I think the question of right or wrong, and like even animals have a sense of right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good question: is where does that come from, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like a conscious thing in a sense, right? So who built that?
There's definitely something there. Yeah.
You get where I'm going? Like I don't like.
Yeah, I'm not trying to go too hard on this
No, that's
agnosticism
cool.
thing, right?
No, that's cool.
It's just like,
I think it's a healthy conversation to have, though. You know,
yeah,
like because I think it's helping a lot of people. But go ahead, finish your.
you know, I'm, I, like I said, I just don't. These things are plausible.
Could be.
I don't know, you know, but I think that right and wrong question is a good question.
Mm-hmm. And I think that when you talk about purpose, if there is no purpose, then pretty much people are going to do whatever they want. And then what kind of system is that?
Oh, it's real bad. I think we need faith, right? You
Right.
have to believe, and I think it's a biblical thing that if you, or someone said, if you don't have faith or don't think that you believe in God, you're worshiping something.
Yeah. Yeah. And you could be worshiping the wrong thing.
And I am very acutely aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, again, I don't have the answers, but that's something that I think a lot of people should think about is like, you're going to believe in something.
Mm-hmm. The people in Moses' time, the Israelites at that time, Moses went up to the mountain to pray.
The false idols.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were worshiping a golden calf.
Mm-hmm.
If you believe that this microphone that I'm speaking into is your God, you have a problem.
Right.
Because this microphone is not going to save you.
Facts.
At the end of the day.
And I think it spreads to like our culture, consumerism.
Correct.
Has become the idol.
Yeah. People worship celebrities. People worship music. People worship things that are like, it's ridiculous on what these people, and listen, we've all been there, but it's not until I came to say, yo, like, they're human beings just like me. They're people just like me. Why would I worship somebody that just because they have more money than me, just because they're more popular than me? I can't bow down to that. You didn't create me.
And it's empty.
It's empty.
It's really empty.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like I've come to that epiphany by getting the things that I wanted, and then it's still empty, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's the false idol thing is always in my mind. Like,
Yeah.
You got to find some belief system.
You have to have it. I believe that, and there are many people, biblically speaking, that have understood that you can't go down the road of destruction. And if you do, then, you know, if you're called, if you're chosen for something, God's going to get you one way or the other. He's going to tell you, and he's going to show you, and he's going to really pull you to the side, and everyone has some form of, like, again, purpose.
The Job story, right?
The Job story, yes. No, it was more the story of Jonah.
Oh, Jonah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Jonah, you know, he supposed to speak to people in Nineveh. And
that's what I was referring to. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
And he got swallowed up. How many of us feel like we've been swallowed up and put in isolation, right? And the fact that we've been put in isolation for a period of time, once we come out of that isolation, right, we're then saying, you know what, I'm going to do what it is God called me to do. Like, no matter what, I'm not running no more. I'm going to face this thing head on, because here's the thing. Jonah was even in a storm. And the thing is that he was running away from the storm instead of running towards the storm. And we all know that when you run towards the storm eventually will pass over. But if you run away from the storm is going to continue to follow you.
Stay in it, yeah.
You stay in it, right? So that whole story is more of a illustration of stop running from the things that God has called you to do, because he's going to get his way one way or the other, you know. And if you continue, because at the end of the, he has the final say. There have been people that even tried to commit suicide and they had failed attempts. Why? Because guess what? God said no. You're going to do what it is that I called you to do. You haven't lived out your full purpose just yet. Some babies, unfortunately, they pass early, but there's still a purpose in someone who was a day old. There's still purpose in somebody who was, maybe, ladies, forgive me, that have miscarried, right? Because somebody has gone through that before and never got any form of clarity.
I don't think you could survive certain things that happen mentally without the purpose behind some tragedies. Well, actually, I was thinking about it yesterday with, your child has had cancer or fighting through that and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you would have to believe in something.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like, I don't know.
Dude, when Christian was fighting cancer, the minute that we got into the hospital room before chemo even hit his body, I spoke to the team of doctors, and I said this thing. I said, listen, I don't care if you're a nurse, a tech, I don't care if you're a doctor, I don't care if you're a tarantula. You got to come in here and you have to have a positive attitude no matter what. And we all have to be on the same page. If you don't have a positive attitude, then you're going to be gone. And it's just that simple, right? Because I can't allow anything negative, that negative energy or whatever, it can't be in the room at all, right? I had to take control and understand that, number one, that's what God told me to do. Because before I even said that, I was praying by myself. And then the instruction was, go pray with your family around Christian. And then the instruction was, now tell the doctors what I said, right? And even then, the enemy still tried to test, to where there were doctors that came into the room with an attitude that got dismissed. They only see my son one time.
That's good, because these doctors, man. Yeah.
So shout out to the doctors that,
right.
that were rocking with me. Because the thing is that if you don't set the atmosphere, like even in your relationships, right? If you don't set the atmosphere, then you're setting yourself up for failure, right? How many times do we go into the supermarket and what's the atmosphere with the music? You're not hearing heavy metal. right?
Yeah.
You're hearing classic rock, R&B, some Billy Joel or whatever is because the atmosphere is set, because that business model is saying, hey, I don't want you to forget anything, because 9 times out of 10, once you leave the supermarket, you ain't going back in until next week, or you may not get it, but then that they missed their sale.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So setting that, I had to learn how to set that atmosphere. And I think that if we learn how to set the atmosphere in our marriages, in our relationships, in our friendships, in our faith, then that is when we're able to take on these challenges and we find purpose in those things. The purpose in my son for battling cancer, well, what was the purpose in that? Well, I'm here talking to you right now. I have this podcast right now. I have these people that I'm supposed to be talking to right now that are getting some form of elevation in being edified through what God did in that previous time. Did it suck? Absolutely. But my faith that he already beat it. He beat it in half the time projected. I don't know if you know that, but they said 300 days or more that we were going to be battling this thing. He's 14 months old. He has Down syndrome. It's very common for that particular cancer. At the same time, that's what normally happens, the almost a year process. He beat it in 149 days, in less than half the time projected. Now, doctors would come in and they're like, I don't know what's going on, but this is just not normal. This doesn't happen. This is why my faith is the way that it is. Because if that normally doesn't happen, then it had to, what's not normal is more, and what's not natural is more supernatural. It had to be a supernatural thing, because if you're taking on adult medicine, because I don't know if you know this, but there's only 4 to 6 children's medicines or whatever when it comes to cancer. 4 to 6. Versus the hundreds of other medicines that are out there for chemotherapy treatments. My son was taking on a mild dose of chemotherapy, which is for an adult body. He was 14 months old. So there's, in other words, that thing could kill him. Right? So we're taking a major risk, but that major risk, our faith is already embedded into that risk. So I say that for my son, having that and going through that, but also me doing my part, dancing with him every day in the hospital room, right? Uplifting him, giving him that motivation, giving him that encouragement. At the same time, I'm doing it for him, but God is taking that and then putting it all over the internet and being like, this is going to be for other people as well too. So what's the purpose in that? Well, now I'm a coach. Now I'm at a point where I'm helping people on a new level and help them be more resilient,
Yeah, man. You got to have some kind of purpose to deal with.
Got to.
What I've seen.
My man. Listen, this has been an awesome conversation, you know what I'm saying? But before we go out, your life, your resiliency, the things that you have gone through, what is something that you feel that has made you truly unshakable, and what can you give to the audience that you can leave them with, that whether they want to get into business, whether they you have been in a long-term relationship, so you know a little bit about relationships, but what are some encouraging words that you can leave with them in this fourth quarter of 2023?
I'm not giving no relationship advice. I don't know what I'm talking about. Right. When you're young, when you spend $1, it's like spending $100. I don't think I'm unshakable. I just think that when you're shaken, you have to regroup and audit yourself. I think the biggest thing is self-awareness. Everyone talks about it. Think about why you think things, because a lot of people don't know why they think the things that they think. So if you believe something, you have to audit why you believe it. And that's a lot of this conversation. Why do I believe this? Where is that coming from? Do I actually believe it? Because a lot of thoughts that we have are actually outside thoughts. So always audit yourself, check yourself. And on the business side, when you're young, you spend $1, it's like you're spending $100, because that dollar will replicate over time if you invest it.
Super dope, super dope. Listen, bro, I got to have you back on. This is a dope conversation. I appreciate you. You're not nervous no more, are you?
Yeah, I'm still nervous.
You still nervous?
Yeah.
All right. Listen up, everybody. Listen, make sure you go ahead and like, subscribe, comment below. If you got a question for Ryan, go ahead and put it in the comments. I'll send it to him, and maybe he can go ahead and answer in the comments the best way he can. Other than that, I'll make sure the link is in the description and everything to go ahead and follow the Talk to Me Nice podcast. They got some pretty cool topics on there. I've been on there a couple times myself, dropping some gems. I would say, listen, please make sure that you live, unshakably. I don't even know if unshakably is a word, but I made up a word today, and it's all good, all right? Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and all of that. And when we change the mind, y'all, we change the game. Now, this is the last thing I'm going to tell you guys. For those that made it all the way to the end of this podcast, because we know that the dip or whatever kind of happens, we don't know who makes it to the end. But for those that did make it to the end, I want you guys to make sure that you go ahead and get into my Unshakable Method Growth Mastery course. It's live right now, okay? For $47 a month for the next year. Yes, we are going to be training. Yes, we are going to be growing. We're going to talk about faith. We're going to talk about relationships. We're going to talk about finances. I may bring in Ryan over here to talk about real estate to help you guys. But it's all about growth mindset and growth mastery to make sure that we're getting to that next level and fulfilling what? Our purpose. Fulfilling our purpose in life. Okay, so with that being said, guys, there'll be a link in the description below if you're interested in that. If you want to grow with the community, let me just say this right here. Listen, normally when people do any type of personal development training, 4% of the people make it to the end. 4%. The other 96%, they go in, they invest, and then they do it on their own. But this is going to be growth by committee. Okay, we have to make sure that we're going to be collectively together. Let's take that 4% to at least 20%. Yeah, it's a big goal, it's a big jump, but I believe that we can do it. Okay, I believe that 20% of the people can make this happen. Why? Because they're going to go ahead and make sure that we're inside the community and going to stay locked in throughout the entire year. Is it going to be hard? Absolutely. Is it going to be tough? Absolutely. Am I a tough coach? Absolutely, because I'm going to challenge you. But I guarantee you this, you will be 100% better than what you were when you came in. I guarantee you that if you follow everything that is in the course, and we'll take it to the next level with you. That being said, go ahead and click the link below. Sign up today, all right? And remember, when we change the mind, we change the game. Yesterday is gone, tomorrow worry about itself, and today is all you got. And if today is all you got, you make sure that you impact today the best way you know how. My name is Kenneth Allen Thomas. I'm your personal and professional relationship, marriage, and all types of coaches and everything that people want to label me as. But I'm that guy, Mr. Unshakeable. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.